Tonight, in an extraordinary move, the Justice Department declared the IRS is, quote, forever barred and precluded from auditing President Trump, his family, his oldest sons, and their companies, or pursuing any claims for past actions. It's part of the unprecedented settlement after President Trump dropped his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. The deal was orchestrated by the head of the DOJ, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is Trump's former personal attorney. Blanche faced tough questions on Capitol Hill today.
You're the president's consigliere.
Your perspective is completely wrong, Senator.
Well,
respectfully.
I think the facts will prove me right.
The president's settlement also creates a nearly $1.8 billion fund, taxpayer money, to pay for Trump allies or anyone else who claims they were mistreated by the Biden Justice Department. It's a group that includes the roughly 600 people charged with obstructing or assaulting police on January 6th.
Trump's IRS settlement is not justice for political persecution, it's corruption in plain sight.
Well,
Ooh, interesting. They all agree. Honestly, I think it's kind of based to just like bully the government. I'm rich guy. I'm like Mr. Rich Guy, and I'm gonna bully the government and get my way. Like Trump should be doing this kind of stuff, but in like a way that makes sense and not just like for his own benefit. But like this is how you win. Like this is the strategy that you have to employ. Like the idea that the government runs on like, well, you draft the bill, and then the bill goes to the House. And when the House agrees, then it goes to the Senate. And then the Senate agrees, and then the president signs off on it. And that's how a bill becomes a law. It's like, that's not how the government works. The government works by, like, dirty tricks. It works by scheming. It works by, all this kind of stuff. It works by, like, abusing the legal system against your enemies. It works by, accruing resources to use at your own discretion. Like, that's how the government works. It's not like this thing they teach you in, like, 9th grade social studies class or, like, government class. That's not how it works. So, in that sense, it's kind of cool. But in the other sense, it's like, it is just like the Trump admin is just nakedly, just massively corrupt. It's basically everything they said about Biden, but about Trump. That is just kind of the case. And, like, if we liked Trump, then I wouldn't care. If Trump was doing a good job, like, this is how I think about corruption. Corruption is only a problem insofar as the people who are doing the corruption are not getting the results that need to be gotten, to run the country and fix things. If the dictator of some country makes the trains run on time and represses like the opposition that are trying to overthrow the state, and the economy is good and blah blah blah, and he's corrupt, but also he's corrupt and he's getting all his friends positions in the government, and he's getting his friends favorable deals with government funds. It's like, who cares? Is it working or is it not working? I don't really care if it's corrupt or not. Is it functioning? Could it reasonably function better, or would trying to make it function better destabilize everything and make it not work, right? So it's not like corruption in and of itself isn't necessarily a problem. It's only a problem if it's like too non-conducive to the running of the state and the society. In that sense, I'm kind of neutral on the corruption. But in the other sense, like, Trump is not doing any of those things that is good for the country. He's just accruing benefits to himself. So, therefore, I'm against it.
Wow, we all agree.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see everybody's light on. Well, this might be less of a debate and more of a chit chat, I guess.
We're talking about whether or not the DOJ is being weaponized by the Trump administration. Obviously, there was a big conversation about whether or not a special counsel would be established to go over Trump's grievance with the IRS. I'm pretty sure there was a man named Little John who, a former IRS contractor, obviously, he exposed a lot of IRS information relating to many billionaires, including Trump, and that was obviously awful. But the main thing is that Trump now controls the DOJ, which falls under the executive branch, and so he's overseeing his own like, claim with the DOJ when he has like his own cabinet members obviously overseeing it. So obviously that creates a conflict of interest, and I agree that's bad. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to build off of that, I mean, not only does he oversee the DOJ because Todd Blanche was his nominee for the acting attorney general, but I mean, it was a lawsuit against himself. Donald Trump sued Trump. He sued the IRS, who he also appointed the administrator of, and then it was legislated by the DOJ. And Todd Blanche is literally on camera saying that, and I quote, he is in love with Donald Trump. It's ludicrous. So yeah, getting Todd Blanche, your ex-personal lawyer that you paid millions of dollars to over the course of his career, that claims he's.
We live in a lunocracy. We live in a lunocracy run by a lunatic in chief. Kind of funny. Lil Jon named? Yeah, we're Lil Jon. What was Lil Jon did Shots, right? The song Shots. That was Lil Jon. Ludacris mentioned. Yeah, we live in a lunocracy run by Ludacris. It's funny.
Quote, in love with you, to sign off on never investigating you, your family members, or your companies for any tax fraud that you've committed up to this point in your life is very corrupt. I mean, it's the creation of a new system of justice where you, and me could be thrown in jail for a crime. And if Donald Trump has committed that same crime throughout his life, he couldn't even be investigated for it. That's clearly corruption in broad daylight.
I actually have somewhat of a nuanced opinion on this. First of all, I think the IRS is a criminal organization that should be abolished. That's right off the bat.
Okay. How do you run the government without the IRS and without?
We ran it for years.
Yeah.
For
How do you enforce taxes though?
I don't think he wants taxes.
No taxes.
Oh,
So no Social Security, no Medicare, no Medicaid, no
Yeah,
food
you could
stamps, no
privatize it.
unemployment insurance.
You could have a
All of
tariff
that's
model.
privatized?
Abolish all the taxes. Go back to a tariff model.
So you're going to heavily increase poverty within the country. You're going to decrease the standard of living for tens of millions of Americans. I just want to be very
What's your
clear.
data to speculate?
What was the
with that?
poverty
What
rate
lead it-
prior to the implementation of Social Security and Medicare?
I mean,
This is
you're
undisputed.
taking.
By the way, this is undisputed within the academic community because the fact that there was such high rates of poverty for elderly individuals prior to the implementation of Social Security and Medicare, which is why the implementation of led to a significant reduction
There are different
in the amount
ways
of people that were
As
disenfranchised.
far as Social Security goes, there are different ways you could do it. You don't have to get rid of it completely. You could do a privatized, different sort of system.
Either way, you need government funds.
That said, I do believe that the IRS unfairly targets certain individuals. In their case, they spent about $600 million on lawsuits alone as a family just because they were in government. They were elected into office, their dad, right? So I think that's being that targeted. It's a level of political persecution that nobody should be exposed to. That said, if we are supposedly under a fair system, people shouldn't be excluded regardless of their position in government, right? So there's a lot of different things. And also with the January 6 guys, there were a lot of
What was his point? What point was he trying to make with that? I'm not.
target certain individuals. In their case, they spent about $600 million on lawsuits alone as a family just because they were in government. They were elected into office, their dad, right? So I think that's being that targeted. It's a level of political persecution that nobody should be exposed to. That said, if we...
Okay, so that's like a soft justification. Because the government was persecuting the Trump family, upwards of $600 million in legal fees that they had to expend because they were targets of political persecution. That's sort of like a soft, sort of like, not a justification, but like an offsetting of maybe like the guilt, or what would you call it? Offsetting of sort of like how bad the corruption is. Well, maybe they're corrupt, but the government does kind of owe them for, the political persecution that they underwent. That's a decent argument. I mean, that's a decent argument to sort of excuse partially, how corrupt the Trump admin is.
Are supposedly under a fair system. People shouldn't be excluded regardless of their position in government, right? So there's a lot of different things. And also with the January 6 guys, there were a lot of those guys. That's one of the few things that I think is actually beneficial out of this ruling, because there are a lot of guys, some of them who I know personally, who are in solitary confinement, were never charged with anything, were very unjustly treated, and they should be...
I think they should be in jail for life, especially the 170...
With zero due process?
Well, I mean, of course...
A lot of these guys weren't
in this
even
country
charged with
deserves due
anything.
process, but specifically the 170...
That is kind of crazy. Like he obviously he's talking about something else, not the people that were never charged, but like him being like the other guy being like, so basically they were never charged and they were kept in solitary for years, blah blah blah. And then Dean is like, I think they should just be in jail forever. That's kind of crazy.
6 J6ers who tried to kill cops and then insurrect the government. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that those guys were in jail. They should be in jail for life. Like DJ Rodriguez, he drove a stun gun into Officer Fanone's neck as Officer Fanone was on the ground being beat with metal rods while the other rioters were screaming, grab his gun and kill him. And then he gave Officer Fanone a heart attack, and the only reason why Fanone is alive today is because then he was rushed off to the hospital. This guy got 10 years. In my mind, way too light. It should have been life. He's a terrorist. Donald Trump comes around 4 years later.
That is like, nobody, okay. I don't even believe that Dean Withers believes that Jan 6 was an insurrection attempt. Like, I don't think he believes that. I think he just says that because that's like the propaganda line that you're supposed to say. Nobody believes that it was actually an attempt to overthrow the government. What, like, so what is it? So the J6 rioters, who are all like blue collar, like working class, probably average to below average IQ, probably below average IQ, they're going to storm the government building and then they're going to set themselves up in the chamber and they're going to start passing laws and installing a new president. Like, what do you think is going on here? Like, what do you think is going to happen? Even hypothetically, say like the riot, you know, they successfully take over the building. You think like the government can't function without the building? You think the government just stops working if you take the building over with a bunch of like squatters? No. Like, that's just retarded. Like, nobody believes that was what do you think, or what? Do you think they were going to bust in with like heavy arms? Well, I guess light arms. They're going to bust in with light arms and take all of the government people hostage until, and point the gun at the head and say, you're going to install President Trump. You're gonna make the electoral votes go the way we say. And then, he's gonna become president by unanimous vote. Like, no, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, and that wouldn't even be legitimate because that would like violate the Constitution. So as soon as they left, they would all be rounded up by the military probably, because now this is like, I don't know, you could probably justify using military action against them. Because, like, in that case, I don't even know. I don't know how that exactly works out legally. But the National Guard, which is basically the military at this point, you could just round them all up by them, and they would all go to jail forever. And then it would be business as usual. They would declare the vote illegitimate. And then they would just reread, and then they just read the votes. Like, none of it makes sense. It's all just stupid.
Out
And
of
then gives him the
600.
full and complete presidential pardon.
Even that
and
example,
that actually accounts for
Fanone's testimony is
178
contested.
of them. Well, DJ Rodriguez admitted guilt, and it was caught on Fanone's body camera.
Right.
Well, even isn't there, if I remember this correctly, isn't there a moment where his body camera goes out and then
Not
you
the
actually
moment
see him
DJ
instigate?
Rodriguez drove a stun gun into his neck.
I wonder
the missing
why.
minute. I haven't seen it.
I
Well,
think that
supposedly, according to people that I know were there, Fanone was specifically instigating.
So do you
people.
think he's
That's why I
lying?
cut
The
out.
officer's lying?
I'm not saying that he's lying, but I'm saying that there's testimony that contests what he said. So I'm just saying that basing your entire argument on a contested testimony from witnesses
It's
who were
not
there,
contested. DJ Rodriguez admitted guilt. Nothing's
that's
contested.
fine. There's still 1 out of 600 people.
Okay, so that guy shouldn't
There
get
were,
any funds from the $1.8 billion.
what about the
Can we agree? Can we
what about the
agree?
people who were in solitary confinement, thrown in a hole without any sort of charge, and then later we're just
We
pardoned?
agree with due
Well,
process,
well,
but would you also agree with due process?
Yes, 100%.
Well, I want to say here, if there was any J6er that was, thrown in solitary confinement with no charge, and this is clearly corrupt, clearly illegal, clearly in violation of the Constitution, they don't need Trump's $1.8 billion slush
So
fund to
you
get
don't
a
think they should be
payday.
restituted?
No, what they do is they sue the government like anybody who experiences a breach of their constitutional rights at the hand of the government. They don't need a special privilege, unlike any other American in this country's history, to get $1.8 billion given to them by the president that let them out of jail after they were convicted.
I think
Some of
that's a-
these
I think that's a
guys, there were
solid point.
about
I mean, no, I think it's fair to do that. I mean, yeah, it's a special case, but I mean, J6 itself is kind of a special case. There's not really anything you can compare it to in US history. I mean, it's a very unique situation. The response to J6, biggest like FBI investigation ever since like the FBI was created. I think it's fair to do the pardon. I think the pardon is fair just because of how complicated the situation is. I think creating like the $1.8 billion slush fund, like I think that's fair.
10 or 12 of them that hadn't been fully pardoned. One of them, in fact, it was just about a couple of months ago that his case finally got expunged.
Do you mean commuted? So they weren't fully
or whatever it was.
Talking about are you saying that their sentence was commuted?
It was finally, his case was finally ended. I don't know specifically the terms. I met this guy at CPAC. He had his case there. He was just taking it around. He's like, I'm still being sued.
Yeah, not a terrorist.
Everybody there was a terrorist?
I think.
What about the people who walked into the building? There's literally video of.
I'll hold on.
There's literally video of showing them just the doors being open and people walking into the building.
Can I clarify though? Do you think the people should have been pardoned who assaulted cops?
No. Absolutely not. If you committed a crime, you should be held accountable.
Right.
I support the blanket pardon. I think that it was such a complicated situation that, and I mean, it's not like anyone evaded punishment. I mean, it's the largest, they were using like AI to track people down. I don't think there's a single person that committed violence that wasn't hunted down and arrested. I don't think a single person got away with it, as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe like a few, whatever, but like, I think that, everyone that was committing like actual violence, like attacking police, or whatever, they all probably spent time in jail, a long time in jail, waiting to be charged and or tried. So they've already spent time with that. And so I actually think the blanket pardon is good. I mean, I would support the blanket pardon just selfishly, not because I needed to be pardoned, because I wasn't there, and I had nothing to do with it. But like, then that's not a meme. I actually didn't. But just because it's good for our side that all of these people do not receive punishment. But even just like objectively, I think it is fair. I think the blanket pardon is fair in this case. If it was the opposite, if it was like the Democrats rioting against like the election of Trump, I probably wouldn't support the pardon. Not because the pardon wouldn't be fair anymore, just because I don't like them. And like selfishly, I want them to be in jail. So I wouldn't support the pardon in that case, but I also wouldn't think the pardon is particularly unfair if, it was the opposite way.
So this is where I'll go, right? I mean, I think generally, I'll say that January 6th was an awful day. I think it was horrible. I think that any officer that was assaulted, I think all conservatives, not anyone that's like necessarily like a cultist or anything, can look at that and say, okay, that was negative and that was unfortunate. And anyone that participated in assaulting any officers or committing any crime or breaching into the halls of our Congress should definitely be arrested and put in jail for a long time.
But that's all of them. But that's everyone that was charged. Okay, charged with what is it like? Trespassing, destruction of government property, or assaulting police. And then there was also conspiracy. There was a few instances of criminal conspiracy. Actually, I don't even know if people were even got for like non-destructive like trespassing. I'm not sure. I forget exactly how that shook out, but there was like 3 or 4 charges that like people actually were, convicted for. And everyone else like wasn't. So pretty much everyone that was charged was technically a criminal. Either trespassing, assault, conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. Like they were all guilty, technically speaking. I just think they should get out because they're on our team. Basically, it's kind of fair, but also it's like our team.
Reaching is a bit, yeah. I mean,
hold on, but I think
you're unfairly characterizing that.
I mean, they breached, bro.
They breached.
Right.
So you're telling me that
That's illegal.
when the doors, there's literally footage that shows
Why
that
did the doors
they open doors.
There's
Doesn't
literally
matter.
footage of them
They were allowed
breaking
in. People do that all the time. They take tours of the Capitol all the time.
Is there
people
footage?
protest?
Tours of the Capitol.
There was okay. The only case I could ever see working is there was an instance where the police opened the doors to let people in, so that they would stop trying to break in, right? And so you could make the legal argument that because like a person who wasn't trying to break in, they see, oh, the police are opening the doors and people are going in, that could be perceived as permission from, a government official, like someone who is working on behalf of the state, right? Allowing people to go in, you could reasonably assume that that means you have permission to enter, right? That's the only argument of any of the stuff that I could see working. I don't know if anybody succeeded making that case. I don't know if anybody beat the charges using that as an argument, but I did hear that was an attempted defense. And personally, I think that's legit. I don't know how the law actually works on that, but I mean, to me, that seems fair. Like, if you perceive that the people working on behalf of the government are letting you in, I would say that person's not trespassing.
People protest in the Capitol Rotunda every day almost.
Let me ask
you. You can go there. There will be a
There's
protest.
a major difference there. Let me ask you, if the doors...
They were all trying to...
I think, saying they do tours all the time and there's protests. That's obviously different. It's obviously different. Also, are people protesting inside the Capitol building? Is that happening? I don't know if that's happening.
Kill congressmen, all 600 of them? How do they all fail?
I think they were definitely going after Pence. I think the day was generally awful. And let's agree, the reason why
I don't think they were trying to kill Pence. I mean, maybe if the wrong person got line of sight on Pence, maybe. But I don't think there's not like this concerted effort. They weren't actually trying to lynch Mike Pence. I don't think that was what was happening. Maybe like an insane individual might try to do something, but I mean, that's not like what was, that would be like a one-off person.
You think they were definitely? You say that definitely?
They were saying Hank Pence, though. They were going
to be fair, they were saying
it was about. Hold on.
You were
don't interrupt. Hold on. Don't interrupt.
People were claiming
I'm not saying all 600.
You said definitely all 600.
Come on, bro. You got me agreeing with net nuclear.
Many of them were shouting Hank Pence. I'm not saying every single individual. I'm not saying every single individual in the crowd.
You did just a moment ago.
I didn't say every single individual. I said they.
I think it's kind of obvious that the people chanting "Hang Pence" didn't actually mean it. Some of them maybe, but I don't think they actually meant it. I think that's just, hyperbole.
Meaning many of them were obviously shouting Hank Pence. Now, yeah, the doors were open because they were breaking through. Do you think that just because doors open to somewhere where, like, obviously you don't have authorized access to go to, meaning you can just go through and break in? Of course not. That's still illegal. You can't break into the Capitol without, except for in the case where the cop is on video opening the doors. But that's kind of beside the point now. Access, like being given like explicit access to go to the Capitol before. They were rioting. I do believe that they were certainly being violent. Many of them, and anyone that assaulted any officer should be put in jail for a long time. It was an embarrassing day.
I would say though, I think the people probably didn't realize they were committing a crime, like because they just kind of were too dumb to realize. I think I wouldn't even say dumb. They just get like carried away in the moment. They say, hey, look, people are going in. Look, the doors are open. We could just go inside. And they're not even really like realizing, wait, like if I do that, like I'm trespassing, I'm government property, and I'm probably going to go to jail. Like, I don't even think that occurred to most people that did it. Like I think they didn't even kind of realize that's what they were doing. That's not like a legal justification. Not knowing the law is not a justification, like legally, but I would say most of the people, that's probably what they were thinking.
Well,
question?
I want to
So
add
wait,
on
hold
to
on.
what Matt said. It'll only be 20 seconds because it's really important. We got to ask ourselves,
Right.
why were the doors open? Because
right.
less than 20 minutes before they were open, they were closed with people like Fanon almost getting killed attempting to protect them.
Exactly.
So at some point, when the officials on duty protecting the Capitol from this group of domestic terrorists ultimately became usurped and they were on the ground getting bloodied and they were almost dead, yeah, you know, they did retreat a little bit, they did pull back, and they said, well, we're just going to roll over and show them our bellies, or else we're all going to fucking die. Because that's legitimately what it felt like to be an officer on that day. Just look at the testimony.
Legitimately,
on scene. And I told you I'd speak for 20 seconds. I'll let you go.
My question is, there are protests that happen all the time at the Rotunda. They happen in that area. People have done that. They've done it multiple times. There have been Free Palestine protests that happen in the same place. They acted in the same manner.
That's a false equivalency.
How is it a false equivalence?
I'll tell you why. Because those protests. Oh, sure. Because those.
He's right.
Yeah, because those protests.
This is the MAGA
because hold on, really quickly.
Protesters.
Well, really quickly, because because many of those protests are organized, and many of them specifically near the Capitol are not explicitly violent, where they're not trying to breach into the Capitol, breach into the White House, right? Where people don't.
Yeah, I think trying to liken J6 to other protests, there are some protests where it might be more relatable, but I think in general trying to relate J6 to like some other protest somewhere that happened at the or a Capitol building is kind of not the argument.
Don't have weapons.
So let me get this straight,
hold on. Let me finish.
No, can I just understand what they did?
And because on top of that, they don't have, for example, like an explicit reason. Like many of the January 6th protests, I'm not saying all of them. Many of their specific belief was that they were going to go in there, right, and punish Pence for not certifying the results, like certifying the electors. That was the whole point.
Okay,
like it wasn't like they showed up that.
I don't think that's true. I think they were mad and they wanted to riot. Maybe they wanted to like disrupt the proceeding, maybe. I don't think they wanted to kill anybody. And I think for the most part, the people going into the building just thought it was funny to go into the building. Because they were just walking around, like the guy stole the podium or whatever. I think they just thought it was like a meme. They were like, hey, we're going to go in the Capitol building and it's going to be fun. Like, I don't think there was much more to it than that for most people.
Hey, we're protesting because we don't like the Democrats or something.
Yeah, that's fine.
They went there for an
Can I
explicit
say
purpose, and you trying to like say that other protests that had nothing to do with that like specific goal is the same as a false equivalency fallacy.
That's true.
Okay. So are you a Pence head?
What? What even is that? I don't know.
No, but there is no such thing as a Pence head. Nobody likes Mike Pence.
I'm so sorry. You're acting as if it takes some sort of political bias to yield the conclusion that they wanted to kill Pence when they're screaming "kill Pence" with a fucking
Yeah.
guillotine
Well,
over their
here's the
arms.
thing. You guys.
And it's a fact.
The guillotine is crazy. I don't know if that was a real guillotine, but I've heard of the guillotine. That's crazy. Who just has that? Who just has a guillotine on standby? Like, where did that come from? That should be investigated. Where did the guillotine come from? And was it a real guillotine? Because that's crazy. That's like the craziest like thing from the whole J6 thing.
What he's talking about with the elector
Here's the thing,
scheme,
I'm not
too.
denying that
The
claim.
elector scheme from
Let me
Donald
just
Trump
say
in the
one thing.
2020 election is also very meaningful to this conversation.
Can I say
because
something?
J6 and the events that unfolded at the Capitol weren't like some isolated incident. What
I know.
underpinned the
That's beyond the
J6
point.
riots
Let me just
was
make-
Donald Trump's fake elector scheme, where he tried to steal the outcome of the election from Biden by installing fake votes for himself in the 7 key swing states that Biden won that he lost. So
I think that is separate. They try to hook that to J6. They try to hook the elector scheme to J6. They want to say like J6 was going to be the vehicle where they'd make the elector scheme happen by, halting the proceedings and then only letting it go through when the fake electors were blah blah blah. Like I don't that's just like a fake conspiracy theory. I don't think that's true. I don't think there's any evidence that that's actually the case. In fact, I would go on the record and say there is zero evidence that that is the case. Also, the fake elector thing, that was legit. That's legit. I mean, hey, whatever you can do, however you can spin it, however you can scheme to win, like, I'm all for it, kind of at this point. now it's kind of like winner takes it all. The loser is done. So like, I don't even care. Like, yeah, you do the fake elector thing, abuse the legal system in any way you can to force through the votes. Like I would have supported that if they could have pulled it off, but they couldn't. So
when we take that underpinning, we add it to the events that unfolded on the day. There's no way that you could yield the conclusion that this was just like your typical run-of-the-mill veterans, sit out in the rotunda trying to get better protections for them after they leave war. No, this was a violent and visceral attack on the fabric of our nation, on our democracy, and as Matt pointed out, Mike Pence, and you don't need to be pro-Mike Pence in order to understand that as a fact.
So here's my question. There have been multiple investigations that showed anywhere between 20 to 200 FBI agents were embedded in there. And
yeah,
so Trump pardoned the FBI agents.
1 second. Who's FBI?
Who was running it?
Tell me.
Who was running it?
You tell me.
Who was
this is a
Trump
question I'm
administration,
asking
but who
you.
was
so Trump's FBI.
But who was ahead of the FBI at the time?
Oh wait, an appointee of whom?
Who was ahead?
No, can you tell me who appointed the head?
no, who is the head? I'm asking you. I actually don't know. I actually don't know the answer. Like, can you tell me? Like, I'm asking you. That's so funny.
Was that Trump? Was it
That is a good question. Yeah. Okay. Well, you don't have an argument there, though. Like,
was it a Trump? Trump was the president. What do you mean? Was it a Trump appointee? I hate the like. It was a Fed op. J6 was a Fed op. That's stupid. Like, that's such a cope argument. It was not a Fed op. They probably had feds embedded into it because that's what you do. Like, there's a protest of 500,000 people in the Capitol, and it's becoming a riot. Like, I would probably have, if I was the government, I would want to have federal agents. Well, like, 500,000 people, okay? And the allegation is what, 200 feds? 200 out of 500,000. Like, that's not that big of a number, okay? Like, now, the Ray Epps thing, that was like the most sus part. But like, Ray Epps didn't start J6. He was like a minor instigator. And the people, they didn't even support that. They were like calling him a Fed and telling him to get out of here. So, I think the Fed angle, kind of stupid.
I'm trying to get clarity. Listen, hold on. Can I finish just one point? I'm trying to get clarity.
And then let me respond.
I'm just trying to get clarity on the situation because this is the thing. The reason why I'm pushing back is because you guys, including you're painting this whole situation with just broad generalizations about everybody who was there, about the due process that they got. I've heard, including from you, characterizations that all of these people were domestic terrorists. Were there bad actions that happened that day? Yes, of course. Do we know the full truth of what these FBI?
He did say yes, they're domestic terrorists. Or well, actually, I don't know if he said that, but he said they all should be in jail. So
agents were doing? No, there's still investigations happening.
Hold on. I just want to say something.
This is there's a Senate. Let me finish my point, brother.
Okay.
There's Chip Roy literally did a Senate hearing. There's like a 2.5. There's multiple 2.5 to 3 hour testimonies of FBI agents talking about what happened that day. I'm just talking.
Saying what?
I'll be less than
saying that they were embedded there and that there were efforts to not just coordinate but to agitate.
The Trump FBI, with a Trump appointee running the FBI, embedded FBI agents in the J6.
You're inferring political motivation.
I'm gonna finish.
Yeah, bro, you're cortisol.
I'm cortisol maxing.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you're
I feel like Dean is probably going to say what I said.
cortisol maxing. Bring it down a level.
It's actually adrenaline maxing when you actually look at the science of it.
It could also
cortisol is sustained
Actually,
for
please
hours.
be quiet. Actually, can you please
It
be
could
quiet?
also be coke maxing, but we won't go there. Listen.
Coke maxing?
I'm sorry.
Are you just hurling accusations now?
Well,
I mean, we're staring at us.
Okay, let's just get back to the topic. What you're saying is that there were Trump FBI agents being led by a Trump appointee embedded in the J6 crowd that inevitably antagonized the people, causing them to insurrect the Capitol, that were then pardoned by Trump. I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but of everything that you're...
Okay, he's not even making the right argument. This is why we can't. This is why I hate everybody. This is why I can't with anybody on any side. They're always just stupid. Like, Dean could make a good argument here. He's not even making the argument. He's just saying, well, Trump appointed the FBI director. So you're saying that Trump was in charge of the insurrection because his FBI did, it's like, that's retarded. That's just a stupid argument. Obviously, just because Trump appoints an FBI director doesn't mean Trump has like personal loyalty of the bureaucratic apparatus of the FBI. Like, that's not how it works. Obviously.
What you're saying here is true. It almost seems like this was Trump's doing.
So here's the thing. One thing you have to recognize, part of the reason why I asked you who was the head of the FBI at the time, do you remember the investigations that were happening, the Russia collusion investigation? That FBI was extremely hostile to Trump. So it's not exactly out of the ordinary to have the assumption that an FBI that's embedding their agents into a rally the day after Nancy Pelosi refused to give him the security detail that he requested, okay? Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer were in a completely different area. They all evacuated. They knew what was happening. So this is what, I'm just trying to look at this
Donald Trump sat
fairly.
in the Oval Office and refused to tell his people to stand down
This
for
is,
2
I'm
hours.
just trying, I'm not making excuses for the terrible behavior that happened that day. I'm trying to look at it fairly without demonizing people who were not given due process.
Why did Donald Trump pardon the FBI agents then that then like
He pardoned
conspired
every
against
single
him?
one?
If he, yeah, why?
Name them.
I don't have to name the FBI
We just
agents
need to know that he
there
offered
are
blanket.
No, well, okay. Trump pardoned anyone who committed a crime that day, which would hypothetically include FBI agents who, like, incited violence, right? If an FBI agent hypothetically was there and he was inciting violence and he, trespassed or he destroyed property, right? Hypothetically, the FBI agent is pardoned for doing that. But I don't think that like has anything to do with anything.
Because nobody knows it. I don't think, as far as I know, there hasn't been a list of those FBI agents that have been
you claim
released.
that those FBI agents were involved in this January 6th. Do you think all individuals at January 6th
The
were
numbers
pardoned?
are between 20 and 200.
Were all
according to these
individuals at
hearings.
January 6th pardoned?
Okay, wait, okay. The number is between 20 and 200, so now it's not even 200. Okay, how many, I guess there's not really any way to know how many actual feds were there because they're probably not gonna say, but.
I don't know how many of those were FBI agents. I can't tell you that.
Can we
I
agree
know
that
the
at least one of them was?
I know that there were at least a dozen.
At least one.
There were at least a dozen people who were involved in January 6th that weren't immediately pardoned. In fact, I met a guy just 2 months ago at CPAC who was still being charged. So not everybody was immediately pardoned. These weren't all
Was he an
blanket
FBI
pardons.
agent?
Do we know anybody that was charged?
Could be.
Hold
It's
on,
a
hold on,
common
hold on.
charge
Do we
on the
know-
right for
So
everybody to get fed,
everyone
so.
that was involved in it that committed some sort of crime, was accused of a crime, obviously was pardoned. So do we know any of those people?
No, there
to-
were people who were
Hold
never
on,
accused.
That's fine. That's fine. Do we know any of those people that were charged or accused that ended up coming out as FBI agents? Can you name a single person?
You think people are just coming out and saying they're FBI agents?
I guess we originally started with
Yeah, that's a stupid question. Have anyone, first of all, if they were FBI agents, they wouldn't get charged for anything they did, probably. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, they didn't charge Ray Epps because he was an FBI something. I think they charged him later. I don't know what they charged him with, but they did end up charging him with something. But initially, he was not charged with anything. He was like the only guy that got away with it. Which is why it was so sus that he was like, unlike Nick who said some vague things, like Ray Epps was like, we're gonna break into the Capitol and take it over. We are going to break into the Capitol, guys. Let's go. We are breaking into the Capitol to take over the Capitol building. Like, he was like pretty blatant about it. He was like quite violent in his rhetoric. I don't know if he said to attack cops or not, but. And then he wasn't charged. It's like, okay, that's kind of crazy. Also, I don't know if there's video of him trespassing. There may or may not be video of him trespassing. And if there's video of him trespassing, that's even more sus. Because everybody who trespassed got charged. As far as I'm aware. So that's like kind of the only case.
agreeing completely that there was political corruption involved with the Trump IRS settlement, but then we happen to disagree with a lot of beliefs specifically on January 6th and the involvement of police officers and whether or not they were lying in the first place, or whether or not the January 6th rioters happened to be FBI agents working undercover, even though it's under the Trump admin.